You're listening to Sounds of the Bazaar, live internet radio, live from Berlin. This is the Sounds of the European Conference on Educational Research, which is being held in 2011 at the Freie Universität in Berlin. It's a huge conference. Something like, we're told, 2,300 delegates have enrolled for this conference. 26 or 27 networks. Hundreds and hundreds of people. And remarkably, it's all being held in one building, a very big building. We're broadcasting today for you for a sort of outdoor area, or well, it's an indoor area, but it's a sort of square, a plaza in the building, near the refectory, near the eating place, and we have a small cafe here. We've got about a couple of hundred people around us, and we've got some great guests lined up for you on this show. I'm going to hand over to Dirk Stieglitz, who as always is directing the show. He's going to play you a couple of minutes music, and then we're going to come in with Eileen Lubka, who's been talking to one of our guests on today's show.
Thank you, Wenka, for coming. I heard you have been establishing a new network calling Education on Health. So tell me about it, why it was necessary to establish a new network in ERA.
Yes, this is a new network, Research on Health Education, and we thought it's very interesting dimension of educational research in general to talk about the links between health and education, to create better schools where children feel better and are healthier, so that the assumption is, or the research findings show that then they learn better and they achieve better results in school.
Okay, and is it also about teaching children to become aware of their own health, or is it more about the environment?
Well, it's about both in a way. There is health education in most of the schools. In some schools it's curriculum-based, and in some schools it's cross-curricular topic. So it's about teaching children about different health issues like sexuality and health, or smoking, or healthy eating, or other types of healthy lifestyles. But it's also about the environment and the conditions that influence our health. The school environment, for example, the psychosocial environment, the relationship in schools, bullying issues, the issues of safety and feeling well in schools as well.
Okay, and how do you relate to the issue of sustainability? Are there meeting points with your topics on sustainable or consumer education? We will have another interview on this show on consumer education. How would you see the cross points in it?
Yes, health and consumer education, and health education and consumer education, and health and sustainable development are very closely linked to one another. And we just had a session in our network just before lunch now when we talked about consumer education about health. So it was about healthy nutrition related to sustainability issues and consumer behavior. So yes, they are very much linked, and our network also engage with issues of sustainability.
I've been coming from Saskia Sassen's talk on keynote on globalization and the cities, and it's obvious that through the financial crisis, the funding is down. How do you deal with this? I mean, you have been establishing a new topic that is so heavily loaded with pay issues among this financial crisis where states are bankrupt and can't pay anything else in the formal education system. Is there already a reaction on it from your network to this problem?
Yes, absolutely. We are a new network within ERA, but we have been existing as a research environment for a long time. So we do have issues with funding, of course, and the economic crisis didn't help. And the educational research is in trouble, as far as I can say. So yes, we are definitely affected by the problem. But I think the health education and education in general is crucial if we want to even consider economic growth and getting out of the economic crisis. So investments in education and educational research need to be strengthened and done.
Yeah, I was thinking because you have been mentioning to creating the school as a healthy environment. Is this an issue you can establish in the funding organizations besides the financial crisis, besides the problem of financing a decent education?
It is difficult. It is increasingly difficult, I would say. But on the other hand, there is a lot of focus on health issues like obesity or smoking. So I think there are money out there. We just need to also prioritize educational research and education in relation to health, not only health issues.
Okay, thank you. I'm keeping my fingers crossed about your funding, and back to you, Graham.
Yes, thank you very much. And normally we'd be going to a musical break now, but it's all happening here in Berlin at the ECR conference, and we've got a great list of guests lined up. So we're going to go straight in. I'm lucky enough to have Leif Moos with me, who is the president of ERA. How do you think the conference is going from the European Educational Research Association's point of view?
I think the conference is very well organized and it's going well. There's a lot of people here. And they seem to be very interested in what we can offer them.
Looking beyond the conference and coming back, because ERA has got a bigger role, hasn't it, than just the conference. You are representing the European Educational Research Associations. What would you see as the big issues for European educational research?
Well, as we see it, the big challenge is to be more visible to the politicians, to the funders, and so on. We have seen that social sciences and humanities, and then also, of course, educational research, is being made invisible. The politicians don't see us. They cut down in many places, and that's what we can see in the European Commission. So what we're doing in the council, and one of my jobs is to try to get into a dialogue with the Commission to say them, hi, we're here and we're very important, because the research we do is very important.
It's a bit ironic, isn't it, that every time you turn on your television set and you see the politicians talking, they say, well, the future of Europe depends on education, yet at the same time we don't see the funding and the policy emphasis on developing it. Why do you think we have that contradiction?
Well, there's a lot of stuff in that. One of them is the sort of a saying that if we want to enhance quality, we only have to cut down. That's one of them. Another one is a very deep belief in quick fixes. If you look at the papers, the green papers and so on from the Commission, they turn on quick fixes. When it's environmental problems, that's one of the big challenges, we go to the technicians. And we think, well, it's not a technical problem. It's us who are all people who must find out to live in another way. And that's education.
And then I suppose a question that practitioners might ask, and I work a lot with teachers, they say, yeah, education's important, but what's research got to contribute to that rather than just putting your investment into practice?
Well, yeah, it is a bit difficult, isn't it? But I hope that our research can contribute to giving them more tools for reflection. We can't give them all of the solutions, but maybe we can get them to look clearer in the situation and what they can do for the kids.
And from my experience of this conference, and I've only been able to get to a few sessions, but there is an awful wealth of material there. Thank you very much for coming on the programme, and I hope we'll see you on a future programme again, and good luck for the future.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're listening to Sounds of the Bazaar live from Berlin. Welcome back to Sounds of the Bazaar, live from Berlin, live from the Freie Universität in Berlin. 2,300 delegates in one building. It's a frightening thing. And this is dedicated to research. And we've just been talking with Leif about the importance of research and the importance of quality in research. And I'm absolutely delighted to say that we got the winner of the best paper, Daniel Fischer, from last year's conference, who's going to be talking now to Judith. Over to you, Judith.
Thank you, Graham. Welcome, Daniel Fischer. As Graham said, you are the best paper winner 2011, and your topic was consumer education. First of all, could you please tell us what consumer education is about?
Well, the starting point of my paper was actually that we are facing a serious crisis, an ecological crisis. Leif already mentioned that in his talk before, and a social crisis. A great proportion of humanity cannot even meet its basic needs. So we are having a sustainability crisis. And the idea of my paper was to look at educational organizations and what they can actually contribute to solving this problem.
We are talking about educational institutions. What exactly is your approach to teach consumer education in educational institutions, and in which kind of educational institutions?
Well, the problem that I see is that the focus of consumer education is mainly on formal learning. So people are looking on classroom settings and on teaching materials that are compiled and provided. And our approach, or my approach in my paper, was that learning takes place outside the classroom as well, and students spend a couple of thousands hours of their lifetime in schools, and we need to look at broaden the scope. We need to look at different areas where students learn. For example, in the cafeteria. We are in the cafeteria here right now, and you learn a lot about consumption in a cafeteria, and it's not a classroom setting. So the framework that I developed, it's called Educational Organizational Culture of Consumption. That looks at different areas of an organization that are relevant for learning.
Do you consider informal context as well and informal learning?
Right. The focus is the idea is to combine formal learning and informal learning. So in order to tap the full potentials that educational organizations have for the promotion of sustainable consumption.
Okay. What came to my mind when I read the title Consumer Education is what is about consumer culture. Is there any relation that you can give us an idea of?
Yes. Actually, the latest report of the World Watch Institute, which is a renowned institute in America, it had the title Transforming Consumer Cultures. And it said that schools represent a huge missed opportunity to combat consumerism. And the one thing that we are trying to work on, I'm actually from a bigger project where we actually cooperated with schools to implement this framework that I developed in the paper. And the idea was that we need to get students to reflect on consumer society, how important consumption has become in our society, in order to find alternative ways to satisfy their needs and to live a good life.
One of my final questions. Do you have any results available? Reactions from students, reactions from teachers, some evaluation?
Yes, as I said, we work together with secondary schools, with vocational schools, even.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry for this. We are continuing.
I still remember your question. Yes, we have worked together with schools and with practitioners, and we have implemented certain measures together with them in their schools to change something about their organizational culture of consumption. And what we know from the empirical study that we did is that those students that participated in these activities consume more sustainably. There's a significant difference between that. And what surprised us was that not just active participation in such processes makes a difference, but apparently already to observe such processes. So even those students that did not participate, but that observed these processes and that could remember certain activities, even they consumed more sustainably than those students that didn't recognize anything.
Okay, before we end, Are your results available online, offline? Do you publish papers, books, whatever?
We have to. Now, we are actually currently working on publishing these results. Should be available by the end of this year, hopefully.
Okay, thank you very much, Daniel Fischer from Lüneburg University.
Thank you to Judith for the interview. If you got a short break in that middle of the last broadcast, that's because this radio is live. And guess what? Someone pulled the plug out. Such as is the fun of live radio, but that's what gives it a real buzz. You're listening to Sounds of the Bazaar, and we're going straight on. I'm delighted to have Marit Hovoid with me, who is the Secretary General-elect of ERA, the European Educational Research Association, and we're just talking about, she said, what are you going to talk to me about? And I said, Marit, I'm going to ask you, what does a Secretary General-elect do within ERA?
Well, the elect is in the shadow, because I'm going to be a shadow for a year, so I don't really know what I'm going to follow Ian, who is the Secretary General for a year, see what he does.
And what role, does ERA play? How is ERA organised? Because we have this huge conference, 2,300 people, I'm told. But how does it actually get itself together? How is it organised? Is there a massive full-time staff? What's behind it?
Well, there is a full-time staff. There is working at the office here in Berlin, 3 people, and but it has the ERA is sort of it's an organization with two structures. It's a organization of organizations. So you become a member of ERA through a research organization in your country. Which does general educational research. That's the one structure, and they then all the research organization, they go into the ERA Council.
And so you've got all the things like the British Educational Research Association. They all form part of the council, but then I've been interviewing people called network conveners. Can you tell us something about the networks?
Well, those are the core of the ESER conference because all of the research is organized into different research areas, and they are represented by the different networks. And all the networks in ERA, they grew up organically through research interest by different researchers, and that's why you see families and schooling, history of education. They're differently organized depending on who started the organization in the beginning.
So that's interesting, isn't it? I mean, if you're trying to structure research, I mean, there's two ways you can look at it, isn't there? We'd sit down and say, this is education, and try and write a taxonomy for it. But this is more, I suppose you'd call it a community organisation in that way.
Well, definitely that's the way that it grew. It grew organically through the interest of a few researchers, and then it has grown enormously over the last years, as you can see, being this many now. And then, but the different research areas that has come out as networks are based on research areas that already existed in the university structure, of course, but some of them are more thematic, based on research areas that some researchers found. This is a very important topic within educational research that we really need to address, and of course that is organically. So we have some research areas that have sort of, well, people apparently haven't put that much interest into them, and then so they have disappeared, and we have new areas coming in.
A personal question, I suppose. I mean, it's a lot of work being involved in something like ERA.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to take this on? Because it's quite a big commitment, isn't it? What was your motivation for taking on this work?
I think my personal motivation is mainly all the things that I learned through an international community, which you cannot learn in a local national community. So that is one of the main things. The other thing is my interest in understanding how organization, especially these kinds of voluntary or organic type dynamic organizations, to understand the way that these work and help and develop in good ways, and also help develop educational research, like Leif talked about earlier here. There is something about visibility in this, which is important, and to see ways that we can work through in order to make educational research more visible. That's important. but use then the organization and the structure that we have to do that. But that's a difficult task.
It's not easy, but I mean, I've been doing some video interviews with the network conveners, which you'll be able to see on the ERA website in the future. That's www.eera.ecr. But what I was struck with is the enthusiasm of some of the conveners, especially in new networks. There's a new network, I think, being launched on health education, which is holding its first launch colloquium today. And there's another network on sport pedagogy. Perhaps I've got the order the wrong way round. It's holding its first year. But it's the real enthusiasm and dedication of the people running those networks which impress me.
Well, I think I find that with all the researchers that I work with through the organization and through the networks, is that there is something that you burn for, and in order to be a researcher in today's society, I think that is part of the drive you have to have in order to survive. Because, like most people know, there's a lot of pressure put on us. So there is something you believe in, and when you believe in something, you're usually enthusiastic about it.
So it's belief, enthusiasm, commitment from the researchers, and we've got to get visibility of the work we're doing.
Yeah.
Marit, thank you so much for coming and talking to us, and we'll invite you back next year when you've had a year of shadowing and tell you what you found out. Thank you.
I'll tell you what happens when you come out of the shadow, okay?
Okay, over to Dirk now, who's going to be playing you some music.
Nothing ever changes, all but you and me. Yeah. I can write a letter you will never mail. I can tell you a story you will never share. I don't care for money, I don't care for fame. Devil makes me love 'em, devil makes me care. Do you feel like dying?
To the Bazaar, Sounds of the Bazaar, live from the ECER conference in Berlin. And I'll hand you over to Eileen Lubka now, who's going to be talking to Harm Cooper. Harm, I think, was on last year's programme a year ago when we were asking him, because he was the organiser for this conference in Berlin, and we were asking him what he thought was going to happen over the next year. And we said we'd invite him back to find out what did happen. Over to you, Eileen.
Thank you, Helm. So thank you very much for being the host of this great event. So first tell us, how is it to operate such a great conference? Is it like only any private party where you as hosts don't have any time to talk to your guests and can't eat anything and are completely occupied?
No, everything is fine. I've eaten and I've talked to a lot of people. Thank you very much. And no, everything is going very fine. We have a lot of nice guests and they all are very interested in our conference, and we had very good organization. Thank you to the organizing team at this point. I have very good staff who did all the work behind, and I think everything works well, and yes, I'm very satisfied with the whole conference so far.
Okay, I think I can stress this. Thank you very much for the organizing team as well. Harm, the topic of the conference is urban education. Was it because it's in Berlin, or why you have been choosing this topic and relating education to the urban side, to cities, maybe to mega cities as well?
Yes, we wanted to choose a topic which fits to Berlin. And Berlin is a city where we have a lot of social change at the moment, and on the last years, and where we had a lot of reform processes in the educational sector. And I think a lot of those processes could be focused under the topic of urban education. And we wanted also to transfer a discussion from the United States to the European context. There we have a discussion on urban education, which means segregation processes in cities and the consequences and chances this has for education. These are questions of social integration, bringing minorities back into the social communities. And I think we can focus a lot of the problems or questions we have in the European systems also under that topic of urban education.
Yes, this was the first instinct I had when we are talking about urban and education, or when we have urban, we are thinking of migrations, of people living from different cultures together. So the cross-cultural topics or the cross-cultural education should be very vital in an urban area to enhance and stimulate peaceful living together. So how can education deal with this growing segregation of classes and races, where where a heterogeneous classroom is less and less becoming, and you are sticking to your own class, to your own incoming class, and your own academic white or migrant background?
I think in general that the segregation processes we find in the society, we have in the society, should not be copied in the educational system. And the educational system should serve to bring the people from different social classes, different ethnicities together, and so that the educational system really is some integrative part of the society. This is the big chance, and I think a lot of reform processes we have recently here in Germany, I think also in other European countries, go in this direction, that we have more integrative school systems, not so much separated school systems as we especially had in Germany. And I think this is the main thing that education can do about this.
Can you give some possible examples on solving this problem? I mean, I remember that in the US they have been trying to bring black kids from areas by school and integrating them into white upper class high schools, just creating public transport. Is this one of the solutions, or how does education needs to change? Can you give us some concrete examples?
A very concrete example is a reform process we have in Berlin. We had in Berlin, like in all the other federal states of Germany, a school structure with 3 different school types. And those school types in fact lead to a kind of segregation. And now we have 2 school types, and some of those school types had been integrated to one form, and I think this serves that integrative function of the school system. I think this is a very concrete and recent example.
I'm coming from Hamburg, where we had a vote on this issue, and we can say that upper class people voted against this integration. So is it also how to convince people to go for this integration instead of sticking to? Is it also a part of education?
I think the dynamics in the public discussion are different in Berlin and in Hamburg. In Berlin we have election not at the end of this week. And I was astonished that these educational matters did not become a topic in the beforehand of the elections. And I think we really have a kind of broad consensus about this in Berlin, but it's true that a lot of people are not so satisfied with that reform process, and some still try to maintain that selective system.
Okay, thank you. I'm still figuring out that maybe the old traditional village school where everybody is taking part in one class is maybe a good idea for the urban education. Thank you very much, Harm, to be on the show. Yes. And back to you, Graham.
Yes. And we're not getting so much time for music, but that's because we've got so many great guests. We've got to bring this programme to an end in a moment. But we didn't want to stop on Sounds of the Bazaar without talking to some of the participants. And I'm just going to give this microphone to Joe now, who's going to go chasing after some of them to get some views from the ground.
Okay, so here chatting to some of the participants. And so how have you found it so far?
Conference overall. The conference is a big work that shows that the organizers are working on this for a long time, and they make so well. It's so many people, well organized. It's quite difficult to find where to go, because sometimes we want to go to some matters and we only find the ones available. Yeah? But in general, the speech and engagement for people to prepare to come here to share their experiences is good, and we can find contacts and have some ideas for our work afterwards, Tom.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Can I ask you as well?
Hi, yeah. Conference is great. It's my first time at ESA. Nearly 2,000 people or something, is it? It's good. Yes, enjoying it thoroughly and looking forward to lots more conversations.
Thank you very much. Back to you, Graham.
Okay, I suppose we're going to have to play you out with some music in a moment. Just a last bit of announcements then. I hope you've enjoyed today's show. Great thanks to all the Sounds of the Bazaar crew. I'll be giving them all a name check on a future programme, which brings me to future programmes. We're broadcasting tomorrow, that's Thursday, live at 10 o'clock Central European time. That's 9 in the morning at the UK, if you can get up early enough, till 10:30. On Friday, we'll be back on air at the same time as today. That's 14:30 to 1500. But if that's not enough for you and you want to get more of the conference in between, we've also set up the ECER Audio Boo stream. And if you go to either Audio Boo, that's audio, AUDIO, BOO.FM, and type into the search box ECR, you'll pick up our stream. Or if you go to the ERA website, which I've given you before, the ECR ERA website, or just search in Google, you'll find all our audio recordings available from a widget on the front page. That's it for today, but come back tomorrow. What a great show this has been. This is Graham Atwell signing out from Berlin. Sounds of the summer, sounds of the conference. You've been listening to Sounds of the Bazaar.